I go looking for old electronics at thrift stores. That's my thing. Has been for about 12 years. I pick up old cameras, old audio equipment, old video gear, fix what's broken, clean what's dirty, sell it online for a small profit. It's a hobby. It keeps my hands busy on weekends. It is about the most ordinary thing a person can do with their spare time. That's how I found the tape. I want to start there because I think it matters. I didn't seek this out. I didn't go looking for something strange. I paid $4 for a used camcorder at a Goodwill in a small town in Tennessee on a Saturday morning, and I brought it home and I found what was inside it, and now I am telling you about it because I have been sitting with it for long enough, and I don't know what else to do with it. The camcorder was a JVC small unit, the kind that was popular in the late 90s and early 2000s. Gray plastic, little flip-out screen on the side, a crack in the battery casing that someone had wrapped with electrical tape. It was in a bin with some other small electronics, a broken alarm clock, a dead calculator. The camcorder looked like it still had its parts, so I picked it up and turned it over and checked the basic condition and put it in my basket. I didn't notice the tape until I got home. I set everything on my workbench in the spare room and started going through my finds. When I opened the tape compartment on the camcorder, I expected it to be empty. They usually are. People hold on to their tapes or they throw them out. They don't usually leave them in the machine. This one had a tape in it. A mini DV cassette. The label on the spine was blank. No date, no title, no initials. Just a small black rectangle of tape in a gray plastic shell. I have a deck that plays mini DV. I use it when I'm testing camcorders to make sure the playback works. I took the tape out of the camcorder carefully and I set it on the desk, and I looked at it for a moment. Then I went and made a cup of coffee and came back and sat down and pressed it into the deck and hit play. It was a Sunday afternoon. Quiet. Nothing else going on. I wasn't expecting anything. The first few minutes looked like a road trip. Someone had filmed through a car window. Daytime. Clear sky. The camera was handheld and slightly unsteady, the way handheld footage always is, picking up every small movement of whoever was holding it. Trees passing. A stretch of plain highway with flat land on either side. The kind of landscape you see in the middle part of the South where things just go flat and stay flat for miles. There was a gas station at around the 2-minute mark, shot from the moving car. The camera tilted up and caught the sign and then the building, and then it was past and gone. A rest stop a little after that, just visible through the window before the car went by. Normal road trip footage. The kind of thing people shot all the time when camcorders were common and everyone wanted to document everything. Around the 4-minute mark, a hand came into frame. Just adjusting the camera, tilting it slightly. A plain hand. Nothing notable about it. The sleeve of a dark jacket. Adjusted the angle and then pulled out of frame. Nobody spoke. That was the first thing that felt slightly off. Road trip footage usually has voices. People pointing things out, talking to each other, commenting on what they're passing. There was no audio except the road noise and the slight hiss of the tape. Nobody in that car said a single word in the entire time I watched. The light changed. Slowly at first, and then the sky was orange, and then it was gray, and then it was dark, and whoever was holding that camera just kept filming. Through the window into the dark. The headlights of the car lit a cone of road ahead, and on either side there was nothing. Just flat, dark land and scrubby shapes of trees here and there, and the occasional reflector post on the shoulder going past in the edge of the frame. The highway was completely empty. No other cars. No lights anywhere except the car's own headlights cutting through the dark. Just a long, flat road going forward into nothing. Around the 12-minute mark, the car began to slow. It pulled onto the shoulder gradually. No sudden stop, just a slow easing off the road, and then it was stopped, and the engine sound dropped, and there was just the idle and the dark outside the window. The camera kept rolling, pointed out the window at the dark road. I leaned forward a little in my chair. The footage was very still, just the dark and the faint shapes of things at the edge of the headlights. The road, the grass of the shoulder, the flat, dark land beyond. Then a figure walked past, on the far shoulder, the other side of the road, walking away from the camera, moving in the same direction the car had been traveling. I almost missed it because it was at the edge of the frame and the low light quality of the tape wasn't good. But it was there. A person, walking. The pace was what got me first. It was too slow. I don't mean slow like someone strolling. I mean mechanical. Every step the same length as the last. Every step the same speed. No variation at all. Like a metronome walking. Like something that had learned how a person walks by watching from a distance and got the general idea, but missed the natural irregularity of it. The slight speeding up, the slight slowing, the way a real person's gait shifts constantly in tiny ways. None of that. Just even, measured steps, one after another. The camera followed it. Whoever was filming tracked the figure as it moved away down the road. I watched it get smaller and smaller and more uncertain in the low light, until it was just a dark shape, and then it was nothing, and the frame was just the empty dark road and the grass shoulder. No one in the car said anything. No reaction. No voice saying, "Did you see that?" No sharp intake of breath. No movement of the camera that suggested surprise. The person holding it just filmed the spot where the figure had been, and then the car sat there a moment longer, and then the engine sound changed and the car pulled back onto the road. I rewound that section and watched it again, 3 times. The figure was real. I was sure of that. It was a person walking on the shoulder of a dark, empty highway at night. What was wrong was the walk. The walk was wrong in a way I kept trying to explain to myself and couldn't. The car drove for a while. Maybe 7 minutes of highway footage. Dark and empty and flat. No other cars. No lights anywhere on the horizon. Around the 19-minute mark, it stopped again. Same as before. Gradual pull onto the shoulder. Engine idling down. Camera pointing out the window. This time there were 2 of them. Standing in the grass just off the shoulder on the right side of the road. Not walking. Standing. Perfectly still. Both of them facing the car. The camera zoomed in. The zoom on old mini DV cameras is not good in low light. The image got grainy and soft, but clear enough. 2 people, standing in the grass about 30 feet off the road, facing directly toward the camera, not moving at all. I watched for a full minute. They did not move. Their arms were at their sides. Their heads were level. They were just standing there in the dark grass facing the stopped car with the camera pointed at them, and they were completely still. The car stayed stopped for about 4 minutes. I timed it on the second viewing. 4 minutes of those 2 figures standing in the dark grass, not moving, not turning to each other, not shifting their weight. Nothing. Just standing and facing and being still in a way that people simply are not still. Even when you try to stand completely still, you move. You breathe. Your weight shifts. Your head adjusts by fractions. These two did none of that. Then the car drove away. The camera stayed on them as the car pulled forward and accelerated. I watched them recede in the frame, getting smaller, still not moving. Even as the car got up to highway speed and they were small shapes in the dark, they were still in the same position, facing the road, facing where the car had been. The camera held on them until they were gone from the frame. Nobody in the car said one word. I sat back in my chair. My coffee was cold. I hadn't touched it. I pressed play again and let it continue. More highway. Dark and empty. The flat land on either side. A long, empty road going forward into the headlights. 27 minutes in, the car stopped a third time. 4 figures, standing in a line in the grass, spread out along maybe 20 feet of roadside, all facing the road, all completely still. The camera zoomed in again, held on them. I watched for a while, and then I did something I don't usually do with footage. I hit rewind, went back about 30 seconds. Watched that section again from a slightly earlier point. The second time through, I paused it, looked at the 4 figures, looked at the spacing between them. Something was different. I rewound again, watched the same section a third time and paused at the same moment. Looked very carefully at the 2 figures on the right side of the line, the space between them. On the second viewing, it had been smaller than on the first. Not a lot. Maybe a foot. Maybe slightly more. But I had paused at the same point in the footage both times, and the gap between those 2 figures was not the same. They had moved. While the camera was on them and nothing appeared to change, those 2 figures had moved closer together. Slightly. Barely. But they had. I sat with that for a long time. I told myself it was the quality of the tape, the graininess, the low light, that I was reading difference into visual noise. I told myself that. I kept telling myself that for the rest of the night. I hit play and kept watching. The 33-minute mark. The car stopped again. One more time. But this time something was different before the figures even came into frame. The camera turned away from the window. For the first time in the entire recording, the camera pointed inside the car. And I saw the car's interior for the first time. The dashboard, the dark windshield, the 2 front seats. The seats were empty. Both of them. Front seat. No one there. No driver. No passenger. The car was stopped on the shoulder of a highway, and the seats were empty, and there was nobody in the car that I could see. The camera was resting on the dashboard, pointing itself at the empty seats. Whoever had been holding it, filming out the window for 33 minutes, was not visible. Then the camera moved. Not fell. Not slipped. Moved. Deliberately and smoothly, it swung back to face the side window. Like someone had picked it up and turned it, but there was no hand in frame. Nothing visible that touched it. It just swung around and pointed itself back out the window at the dark road. I stopped the tape. Sat there. The spare room was very quiet. I could hear the refrigerator in the kitchen. A car going past outside. Ordinary sounds of an ordinary house. I pressed play. The camera was outside the car now. I don't know exactly when the transition happened because I was looking away when it started, and by the time I looked back it was done. The camera was outside, and someone was holding it and walking along the shoulder of the highway. Gravel under feet. That was the only sound. Slow, measured footsteps on gravel. Not hurried, not cautious. Slow and even and purposeful. The camera panned left. Held on a road sign. A big green highway sign. the standard kind, mounted on 2 posts at the roadside. The sign was clear in the frame for several seconds, long enough to read, Mile 74. Just that. Mile 74 on a highway somewhere in Tennessee, clear as anything. The camera held on it like it wanted me to see it, like it was making sure I got a good look. Then it panned right, into the dark grass beside the road. A figure. Just one this time. Close. Very close. Maybe 10 feet away when the camera first found it. Standing still, the way they all stood still. But this one was different in one way. This one had its back to the camera, facing away. Standing in the dark grass, facing away from the road, from the camera, from whoever was filming. Just standing there with its back turned. The camera moved toward it. Whoever was holding it was walking forward. Slow steps on the gravel and then onto the grass, getting closer. The figure stayed perfectly still as the distance closed. 8 feet. 6. 5. Still not moving. Just standing there with its back turned, facing whatever was out there in the flat, dark Tennessee night. The camera got within arm's length. I could see the back of the figure clearly now. Dark clothing, average height. Nothing I could identify. Nothing I could tell you that would explain anything. A hand entered the frame. From the right side. One hand, reaching forward toward the figure's shoulder. Plain hand. The same hand that had adjusted the camera at the 4-minute mark. The sleeve of a dark jacket. Moving forward slowly and steadily toward the still figure's shoulder. Not scared. Not hesitating. Reaching with the certainty of someone who has done this before. Who knows what they are walking toward and is not afraid of it and has come here deliberately. The hand got close. Almost touching. The tape ended. 38 minutes, 22 seconds. Then gray static and nothing. I watched it 3 times that night. I'm not going to pretend I wasn't rattled. I was rattled. But I watched it 3 times because I kept thinking there was something I missed. Some detail that would explain it. Some angle I hadn't considered. There wasn't. I put the tape in a case and put it on a shelf and went to bed. I didn't sleep well. A week later, I posted about it on a forum for found footage. Not the sensational kind of forum, a serious one, mostly hobbyists and film people and a few researchers. I described what was on the tape. I uploaded some still frames I'd grabbed. Not the clearest images, but clear enough. Most of the responses were what I expected. Hoax. Film students. Someone's art project. A few people said the figures looked like mannequins and the whole thing was staged. That's the most common explanation for anything strange. Staged. And maybe they were right. Maybe it was all constructed. But one response stuck with me. A person posting under a handle I couldn't identify said they were a former highway patrol officer who had worked in Tennessee. They said Mile 74 on that particular stretch of highway had a history. Between 1998 and 2003, 6 people had gone missing in that corridor. All adults. All driving alone. All simply gone. No wreckage. No remains. No explanation. They said the case files were public record if I wanted to look. I looked. It took me 2 days to find the right county records database, but the information was there. Partial, sparse on details, but there. 6 names, 6 missing persons reports filed between 1998 and 2003. All adults, all last known to have been traveling on that highway. All gone without a trace. I printed the pages and sat with them at my kitchen table. 6 people, 6 names. A stretch of highway in Tennessee that I had now watched on tape for 38 minutes. I contacted a man I found through the forum who had a background in forensic video analysis. He watched the tape. He took his time with it. He came back to me with a written assessment. He said the figures in the footage were real people or extremely sophisticated practical effects. He said the camera movement in the final section of the tape was inconsistent with standard handheld operation. He said the way the camera moved, the smoothness of certain pans, the angle shifts, were more consistent with the camera being guided or directed by something rather than held naturally in a human hand. He said he couldn't explain the empty car interior shot. He said he had no explanation for the transition from interior to exterior filming. He said he'd like to examine the original tape further. I haven't sent it to him. I made a digital copy of the footage and mailed it on a USB drive to the cold case unit in the relevant county in Tennessee, with a letter explaining where I found the tape and what was on it, and the information about the missing persons cases from that corridor. 6 weeks later, I got a form letter in the mail. White envelope, standard county letterhead. Thank you for your submission. This matter will be reviewed. Nothing since. I still have the tape. It's on the shelf in my spare room in its case. I've looked at it a few times without opening it. I haven't played it again. I'm not sure I'm going to. I haven't driven through Tennessee since I watched that footage. I've had reasons to go that direction twice, and both times I found another route. It adds time. I don't care. I find another route. I think about the tape often. I think about the figure walking on the far shoulder at the 12-minute mark. That walk. That terrible, even metronomic walk with no human irregularity in it. I think about the two figures standing in the grass, and the gap between them that was smaller the second time I looked. I think about the empty car, the camera that moved by itself. I think about 6 people who drove alone down a flat highway in Tennessee and simply stopped existing. But mostly, I think about the hand. That hand reaching out at the end of the tape. Plain hand in a dark jacket sleeve, reaching toward the shoulder of something standing still in the dark grass with its back turned. I have watched that moment probably 20 times across the 3 viewings, and I keep looking at that hand for fear, for hesitation, for any sign that whoever was holding that camera was afraid of what they were reaching toward. There was none. The hand moved forward the way a hand moves when you reach for something familiar, something expected, something you've touched 100 times before. Calm, certain, unhurried. The hand of someone who knew exactly what was standing there in the dark and had walked up to it deliberately and was completing something they had done before. That's the part that stays with me. Not the figures and not the empty car and not the sign reading mile 74 in the dark. The hand. Whoever that was, they knew what they were walking toward. I just don't know if they were the one doing the finding or the one being found.